we're going to move on now to the main show really in Test Rugby at the moment. The opening stanza of the series between the Wallabies and Les Bleus has concluded, and boy oh boy was it a dramatic game in Suncorp Stadium. 23-21 it finished. The Wallabies somehow got out of jail against a really good but maddening French team at the same time, and it was a brilliant game. I really enjoyed it. Super game.
Credit to Paul Williams, man in the middle with the whistle. Didn't see much of him at all game. He was a bit of a non-factor in my mind, which is great compliment to a ref. It was flowy, it was brilliant, the high tempo affair. It was a proper test match between, as we predicted, two sides that stack up really well with each other and ask good questions of each other. And the Suncorp Juju managed to dig Australia out, or maybe it was just France shooting themselves in the foot, or maybe a combination of both. It's kind of unfathomable how France managed to lose that from 15-0 up initially. And
they went to Villiers, got a brace. They went to took a 15-0 lead. Were all over the game. Did concede a try before halftime. It was 15-7.
That's right.
Didn't end up costing themselves another score before halftime. They were absolutely fantastic. It was a ding-dong battle. The Wallabies came back into it. The introduction of Tupou with 30 minutes to go when they were 8 points down changed the game. He's an X-factor player. He's one of the best players in the world. He probably is the best tight head in the world now.
It's possible.
As much as I love Big Tig, he looks incredibly explosive. Corabetti was everywhere. There was a lot to enjoy. It was just a ding-dong battle. France opened the show with brilliance, and the Wallabies came back into it. Their pack looked mighty. Their scrum looked mighty. They were using their weight advantage. Philip looked like he'd bulked up. Salaka Loto looked like he bulked up.
Their whole back row was
Valentini, huge man. And Hooper was brilliant and dug them out. Really took on that captaincy role you saw towards the end of that game.
Actually, I thought Philip by the end of the first half was absolutely brilliant. That maul time, the Payangamosa try that they got to make it 15-7, which proved crucial just to get on the board before half time, and they were willful. They kept kicking the corner, kept going for it, and they got their score. And likewise, credit where it's due, when they were 8 points down, they kicked to the corner to get the try, where a lesser team might have kicked 3, and a lesser students of the game would be saying, it's 100% what you do here. You have to kick the 3. It's a 2-score game, so you have to kick the 3 now and hope that you might get a chance to score a try later, as opposed to take the chance you have to score a try now and let's look for the 3-pointer later on, which was the right thing to do, and Australia did it, and were rewarded for it.
It aged very well. I mean, they owned the ball. France did defend very well. They owned much of the game as the second half developed. France, I thought, to their credit, like some of the areas that we'd flagged as issues for them, like the exit, just weren't. Like
their kicking game was
Kuyu from scrum half was magnificent. They really seemed to have worked on that side of the game.
That's true.
And they
even Carbonell had a couple of nice ones. The big spiral bomb that yielded a uncharacteristic drop from Lolosio, that was a brilliant spiral kick that got them straight out again, and a perfect exit because now they have a scrum.
I think they were kicking from their own 22 into the opposition half, chasing up, making tackles, winning penalties, getting down the field. It was sensational. They really did turn around that part of the game, and they left the Aussies flapped. I think the criticism that I have of France that's still there, that still is contributing to why they haven't lifted a trophy yet,
why they lost this game
is because in key moments, they mismanaged the game. And there are a few that I can think of. There's one that's extremely harsh, that's kind of me just leaning into the whole don't take threes thing, but the reality is the kick to go 8-0 up. When you look at their red zone return from the game itself, they were perfect. They only had like a minute and a half in the Wallaby,
57 seconds or something.
In the Wallaby 22. They just scored tries every time they got in there, and they turned down a really valuable chance to get into the Wallaby 22 and attack that disjointed defense in favour of chipping over a 3 and taking an 8-0 advantage and taking it to the bank. The problem was they just didn't get into the red zone enough. They didn't win enough of those
problem they kept having from the Six Nations. It carries on here, and it's part of it is they do kick the threes, and you see in the few bits of Top Couture's footy that we've seen, there's an awful lot of that. There's a lot of beautiful rugby, like there's that jouet and French flair. That's all happens in the middle third, but when it breaks down in a penalty, they do just without even thinking, they just kick the 3. It's just what you do over there, and it's like there's a school of thought that thinks that's right, that we're sometimes naive madmen to be kicking the corner, and sometimes it definitely is, but France do it always, and they only scored 6 in the second half, and they lost the game by 2.
That was the other thing, is in the second half, classic France, they run out to a lead, they gas a bit, they're not quite themselves, then they end up sort of slowly wilting and fading as the game goes on, and they got a rare score to make it 18-10 before Tupou came on. They took that 3 points to make it a 2-score game. On that occasion, it wasn't an unreasonable thing to take that 3 points. But then immediately afterwards, they dropped the restart. And it was actually Dante who dropped it, and he was brilliant from 12.
That was his one error.
Absolutely fabulous for the whole game, including coming up with what should have been the winning steal at the death.
Yes.
But just right after you've taken a 3-pointer to put the game back to a 2-score game, like if you're going to take that 3,
another one of those
you
key
have to
moments.
emphasise the exit, the key moment. That is such a key moment.
Yeah.
It's massive, and they just, in that moment, they mismanaged things. And then obviously at the death, just complete madness. Complete madness.
Like I was excited. We were touting Jaminet. Jaminet was an exciting debutant, fresh from Pro D, top scorer in the Pro D. He kicked the other 3-pointer to move it out. He showed his kicking acumen with that. He showed a lot of good qualities, but then in that final quarter, he was calamitous. Like absolutely calamitous. Contributed to all of the Aussie scores, including the very last one by throwing them the ball when it was over the 80 minutes, and he could have just done anything other than that. Credit where it's due, it was Tupou again coming rampaging through on little Iribarin, and then it was Jaminet both shoveling it along because Tupou was down the thing, and then it ends up going to Deck and into Corbett. It was obviously crazy, obviously ridiculous, obviously not something you recommend, but you have to give credit to that tight head who's charging down there when the game is all but gone.
I would touch on that as well. From an Aussie point of view, you got to see the benefit of having him on the bench, where you can just give him that explosive 30 minutes
against tired
bodies is right, and he just was everywhere. He was there in the loose, he was making killer incisive breaks that won them the game.
That
he was there on defense.
Break he made from the midfield, so unlucky that didn't end up being a try. I think the
it was
kick
still
ended
huge,
up out on
though.
the full,
it was still
it was
crucial. It still pinned them back, and it was a big moment in the game. And then at scrum time, every scrum was just a pulsing Tupou show, where he just destroyed his man on the inside, and then left the French hooker vulnerable, and was doing damage.
One of the ones he just came clean through the pair of them. It was just Tupou shredding through their bind and out the other side of it, and it's like, oh my goodness, the man is a freak.
Explosive in the extreme. A phenomenal tight head who changed the course of the game magnificently. I mean, the Wallabies will be relieved. They were nowhere at the beginning of the game. Their first phase defense was shocking. They were completely exposed.
Was dropping balls.
Paisami was okay.
He was okay.
I enjoyed his
just in that first quarter. He was a symptom. As same thing. Lolosio looked very young then. Gordon was a little slow. There was drop balls from
that 9, 10, 12 axis didn't offer a huge amount, and Gordon had a couple of loose kicks. I would have preferred to see McDermott, and McDermott was better when he came on.
True.
But they were also just a little disjointed. It was their first game of the season.
It's their second. It's not their first choice halfback pairing as well. There's a little chopping and changing that goes on with that. That being said, some members of their team did perform really well. Tom Wright, however, didn't quite fall for him. He was great last time.
It fell for him.
It fell right through his hands, and the Frenchman going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" It wasn't a good look for him. He had been brilliant last year, and he's in there on merit, but didn't quite fall for him the bench the ball this time. Whereas Corbett was looking so good out there. He's such a turbo man, such a great engine.
Bits of what they were doing were great, and they got their offense going there. They won the forward battle. They weathered the French storm. They came back into it. They started to own the territory game. They started to get their foot on the ball. Their offense can be better and needs to be better. And you just think of the Paisami try that wasn't, and the right try that you pointed out, which wasn't, which was a lovely kick in behind from Paisami.
That's true.
That ended up creating that, and it should have been a score. But you think as the season goes on, those will be scores, and they definitely will be mighty relieved and delighted to come out the right end, and it could just be what they need, the break they need to spur them on for a tough season ahead.
Well, it's true. Well, now they have a leg up. Like, they haven't won a home series in quite a while. I know they lost the series to Ireland a few years ago. They got whitewashed by England a few years before that. They're kind of, obviously we were making mention in our preview of this whole tour, our series preview, that it's kind of it's Vive la Renaissance is what this is being branded at. They're both young coming teams, having come from kind of relative rugby wilderness for nearly nigh on a decade, the pair of them. So this would be a very positive result if they are one result away from chalking up a home series win against a team of the calibre of France. That would be huge for the Wallabies.
It'd be
great feather in Rennie's cap as well, as he kind of, it's only a young tenure. It feels like it's been Rennie's Wallabies for a while, but Yeah, he's a relatively new coach in there, and he's already, the green shoots are evident.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, France should have won.
France should have won, and Kulu was brilliant. Yeah. His kicking game is better than Dupont's. Like, it's a real thing. Like, they don't necessarily pick when their first team is out. The balance isn't right as far as having kickers of the ball. I still don't understand why they didn't get Boutier on. You get Boutier on, you win that game. French coaching ticket. I don't know why they hate him. He's been nothing but brilliant in a French jersey. I've been calling for him for the last year, and he's just out of the equation. I even watched him for Montpellier, and he was the best player on the pitch. I'm just like, what's going on? He's on the bench. Get him on the pitch. Don't leave young fullback on there to throw the ball and the game away at the same time. It was just silly. But Dante from 12, magnificent. Jelange captaining the side, some lovely touches. One ridiculous touch, which was kind of more dialed out France than just him, but it was like just before half time where he caught the ball off. He didn't fully expect it. They looked like they were going to box kick it, but then thought of against it and then shipped it onto him, and then he just stood there and just kind of stopped and kind of put his hand out, and then got stripped and then gave away a pen, and then it was like it didn't end up amounting to anything, but they did. It was the exact same thing as like the Scotland game as well. They just giving needless ins. That was at the right of the death of the half. I was trying to give a man a compliment. I mean, he had that was one mistake. That was the one mistake. But I was citing he had a good offload in the build up to one of the early tries, and actually Cretan was excellent beside him as well in the back row. The pair of them were busy the whole time. And Villiers obviously grabbing 2 tries, looking hungry. First phase attack's good. But yes, that was that game, and a magnificent game it was. The two will go head to head in the second game on Tuesday. Yes, that's the 13th of July next week. AAMI Park in Melbourne is the location for this one. So they're moving away for this before they have to return to Suncorp. And a relatively new coaching ticket. I think it's James Dolman's first refereeing ticket. Refereeing ticket, yes. Official match day officials. I think James Dolman of New Zealand is taking his first Test match. So congrats to him. He'll have Paul Williams and Mike Fraser for company on the touchline, and Brendan Pickerel, an all Kiwi kind of match day officials or officials team, which is fair enough to be honest. I think they'll keep a good flow of game. They kind of both understand how both teams will want to play, and I think it'll facilitate good rugby. I would no concerns on the refs at this juncture. We obviously don't have the squads at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see how the series develops, and we're going to take a look at what both teams need to do to adjust and get the win. Starting with the Wallabies, of course, the home side, the side that's 1-0 up now. They have options as far as their squad is concerned. You know, it's a 6-day turnaround. We spoke about Tupou, McDermott, maybe getting those guys involved. There's potential that JOC could be involved as well. That'd be good to see. They've other options in their squad as well. Muirhead is a guy on the wing who I like. He could come in. Fraser McWright has some Test experience. He could come in. That's true. Even Perez, there's been a lot of talk about as well. He could come in as well. So I'd be curious to see how much they mix things up. They'll be very, very happy with their forward pack, their set piece. All of that was lovely. The maul, the scrums, that's only going to get better as well. Even actually the performance of Swain on debut off the bench for Philip, and he was spearheading mauls much like Philip was, so it was just good to see that depth coming in. Similarly, Ikitau, they had a couple of, I think they had 4 debutants last week off the bench as well. Ikitau, and then Ikitau and your man on the wing. The rebel name. The Kellaway, yes, both made debut, and then there were a couple in the pack, including Swain, who I thought was probably the most impressive of them, just because of how much he got done, how much work he got through in the tight. So those are good options for them as well. They will want to rotate the squad, because as we were saying in our main preview vid of the series, they're probably a little stretched thin. They have a few injuries. They don't quite have the full squad of depth that they will hope to have by the World Cup. They're not quite there yet. This is a good building block for them. They do have some options still, and in the context of winning the series, obviously with the 6-day turnaround, it would make sense to get 1 or 2 in. I think the key work-ons, obviously delighted with the forward pack, the set piece, but the offense probably needs a bit of work. We saw in moments them getting into some good rhythms and them accessing the wide channels. Koulibaly was everywhere and a delight, but they probably didn't put him in the kind of space they want to put him in enough. He was coming off his wing to find work as opposed to being put into the space to finish tries. There was dynamic carrying. Wilson was involved. There was tremendous mauling, that kind of attack, tight attack, and then good kicks in behind. But and Paisami was picking some great lines. I thought the Paisami try that was kind of the try we described in terms of breaking up that Edwards defence, where you just ferocious carry off first phase, and then before you know it, the ball has gone to another short line, and that was beautiful, except for the fact that it was a forward pass. So they need to tighten up 1 or 2 things, but I also think they do need to work that Aussie screen back in, get Lolosio a little bit wider and try and just really stretch the French defence as well as everything else, because when they're tight and explosive and they always go for the short ball, they can leave themselves open to the poach, which they happened to them a few times.
Yeah, well, certainly that was their bane in the Rugby Champion, or not the Rugby, the Tri-Nations as it was last year. They were just being
and a couple of times on the weekend
putting together
Dante
lovely sequences, and then ultimately it didn't amount to anything. And Dante was doing it as well.
Naisarani, that last minute carry that should have lost them the game, when Naisarani gets over the gain line but just lands at the feet of Dante, and then it looks like game over.
It should have been game over. But yeah, no, those are definite work-ons that will come with time. Like things like obviously you mentioned Wright dropping that ball over the thing. Paisami, if the pass wasn't forward, that's 14 points right there. That's the game over. Then it's a hammering.
It's one way to look at it.
But yeah, no, those little moments of being a bit more clinical will come with time. They kind of what's encouraging is that their shape looks good.
Their shape does look good.
Their back row look mobile. They look fit.
Yeah,
they look
really like Harry
ready.
Wilson from 8. I think he's a fine player. I know he gave up the ball. He had one bad moment where he kicked the ball out of the scrum and let France in for their opening try, which is like when they're so limited in terms of opportunities given. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I thought their pack was really good, really mighty, really balanced.
Yeah, Alonso actually locked down. It went perfectly to plan, because he had a dynamic battle in which he was not quite edging it, but certainly giving as good as he got and locking it down, and it just meant that when you could roll Tupou out, it worked a treat. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them flip that role entirely now, have Tupou do his big shift, and then have Alatoa come in for the last 20. It seems to make sense if you have two tight heads that you trust and a 3-match series in 11 days.
Yeah,
you're going to
absolutely.
spread the starting jersey around.
Rotate it. I mean, Tupou's no stranger to doing long stints as well.
Yeah.
But having him on in short stints definitely adds to it. The other key work on for the Wallabies ahead of this one, as well as the kicking game, which is important as well. Like, they want to just get more air on the ball. Some of their kicks were pretty shallow. Jake Gordon didn't have a great game with the boot. Banks is dialing in his boot, and he's their number one guy for exiting.
Yeah.
I would love to see them get him in the pocket and really try and bomb the ball deep.
Yeah, he does have that in him.
Yeah, they need to be.
Too often it was Lolosio had a couple of loose ones, but so did Tamua as well. Just the kind of the whole the dinky, the rugby league kick that they do.
Yeah, well, just from their own half. They were outshone in the kicking game by the French, which is unlike them.
Yeah.
But the other key one is just the first phase defense. I mean, France, with precious few options, they managed to cut them open. The Wallabies, they're no strangers to the inside ball or the blindside wingers, but they got to track the French runners, because they're coming from everywhere. You got to track them. You can't be leaving soft holes. And there was the Villiers try as well. I can't remember. I wish I could remember who it was, but one of the Aussie lads, a back rower, came storming off and actually overran Villiers, and the ball ended up going in behind him. He needs to just plant his feet and track Villiers and make sure that guy is not getting the ball. You know, if he gets the ball, I have him.
I'm not sure if it was the back row. I think actually Gordon and Lolosio shot up on that on both on the 10. Gordon, I think the pair of them came herring after the 10, and then just
or was Dante who gave the soft ball
after Dante, and then just the inside ball took both of them out of it, and then through he went. It was a lovely score from a French point of view. But from a Wallaby point of view, you want to tighten up things like that. Certainly Dave Rennie you have the tape on them, you know what to expect. You do need to guard those runners. It doesn't make it easy to stop, but you can't leave the hole that easy.
No question. And from a French point of view, for Les Bleus, they obviously have to pick themselves up the floor and keep fighting. They can take much encouragement from that day at the office. They're more than capable of mixing it, as we knew they would be. In fact, some of the changes that are seen to be, this is a French C team, some of them are a positive. The fact is that this crop of players is better suited to getting out of their own territory is a great sign. Much of that game was played in the middle third.
That's true.
Which is an improvement on constantly being under siege.
Yes, that was their whole Six Nations campaign was spent in their own 22 for the most part.
That much is true, and absolutely. And then obviously the main point that I was talking about was just the big moments. Exit after a big second half score. They have to focus on those kinds of things. Identify when they have the initiative and go after the try. Those things are important. I'd love to see them work on them. I'd love to see
top 2 inches stuff is what's needed across this whole French team, and it's not just the personnel involved, it's just a winning culture that needs to be developed. And as opposed to the last couple of games, which has been the Aussie game and then the Scotland one that finished the kind of damp squib that ended their Six Nations, it's like losing games at the death like that is not going to help your confidence. They need to remedy that. This isn't at Suncorp, it's at AAMI Park. This should have been the one they'd be targeting anyway. Certainly it's the one in my mind that they have the best chance of winning. Hopefully they will rise to the occasion. The fear is that there's a bit of or go down like a lead balloon if you feel aggrieved, if you feel you should have won that game, which may be true, but you can't let it get down in the dumps. You have to take the positives. here we are, we have very little test experience, we're in Australia, we put it up to them, we should have won,
we can attack,
we can defend, we can do this. You want to see them, we can, as opposed to we should have.
Yeah, of course. No, they don't need to be beating themselves up. They do have some potential squad rotation they could make as well. The likes of Diallo from Racing could come in. Teddy Thomas and Racing are wing stocks that they have. Raka, I said Raka and Teddy Thomas, class wingers.
Yeah, they aren't bad actually. Those lads, they're pretty tasty.
Both awesome wingers could get in. Boutier, obviously, I'd like to see involved. They could also bring in someone like Awoki and try and attack that line out, because the maul was doing bits, and if they can disrupt the line out ball, they can get on top of it by one way or another. They have to stop it, like by either getting your hands through and fighting Phillip, or by poaching the ball off the line out.
Which Awoki might be their best guy in squad at that particular skill.
They need to get that dialed in and take that away from Australia, because that's a huge area.
That's true. The maul did pay good dividends for them as well. I was alarmed to see, or not alarmed, just surprised to see the disparity in pack weight, that the Wallabies were that much heavier than them. But it kind of, on reflection, made sense, because although they had the big meaty locks last week, the Australian locks look bigger than the last time we saw them on a test pitch. And then you look at the back row and opting for like Makalou and Cretan and Chelange.
Cretan is big, but Chelange and Makalou
are kind of rangy. And then you look at the Valentini and even Wilson and Hooper, they're stocky guys. They're squatting, they're packing on the kgs. So there's a lot of weight in that Wallaby pack. There's a lot of heft in that scrum. So it wasn't all like France couldn't really target them at that area, which traditionally they may have done, but they could find seams off first phase. They could strike and rip through them with very clinical attack, and they have wingers to bring in.
And they could disrupt the line out if they get up a couple of jumpers up. If they dial that in and put pressure on Payanga Mosa's throw, then it's a different game. If the Wallabies can't get secure line out ball, it's a different game. That'd be a huge area of working on that I'd like to see. I'd also like, of course, to see them defend with the same tigerishness, just to get on top of the ball. But obviously in the second half, they need to identify in moments when they're a little tired, and they just need to be solid and not go crazy and start just like throwing hands into every ruck, jumping offside.
That's true,
given the Wallabies entrances.
The enthusiasm they have in defence these days is encouraging. That's great. But when it gets over exuberant is when you just get you're undoing, you're right to say they're exiting much better than they were in the Six Nations. But for every exit, there was a cheap re-entry granted. You'll exit and then you give away a ridiculous penalty in the middle third, and then you're back here again having to exit.
No, you're 100% right. It's a killer. That is a killer, and they definitely need to work on that.
True.
On offense, just keep probing. Hopefully, they can generate a few more chances for themselves.
That's it. The chances they have are normally taken. They just don't create that many.
Exactly. They just don't put themselves in the right areas of the pitch enough. But when they do, it'd be nice to see them. Obviously, Penaud was pretty starved of ball. It'd be nice to see them stretch the field
ball at all, even down to the last play of the game where he went inside and the ball was thrown to the deck outside of him. He didn't seem to get a touch last week. Wherever he went, the ball went the other way. We know he can be very dangerous. He just didn't get on the ball. I wouldn't mind seeing him out again. That being said, he may be hauled out of there because of that. You'd probably keep Villiers, the two try scorer.
When you look at the likes of Teddy Thomas, you wouldn't mind giving him a go, but especially that guy can create something from anywhere. But you'd like to see them get to the tram lines, probe a little more. Part of the reason why you didn't see them so much is because they scored so quickly, but you would expect Australia to make some adjustments, and you would expect them not to be as porous. But I'd love to see France get those rhythms going and maintain that sort of classy edge that they have on offense, where they just get scores from everywhere.
That's what you love from France. And it is just, as you were billing it, it's probably the best test rugby we've got for the next couple of weeks. It's really, really good. They're two sides that it's just impossible not to like. Nigh on love the way they go about playing the game.
I'm loving them. It is the renaissance. They're both class young sides who I wish nothing but good for, and I think both on the right direction.
What a peach they were treated to in Suncorp. It went right down to the wire. 8-point deficit overcome in 6 minutes. Crazy Suncorp juju in the air. French calamity at the end. All kinds of drama, and it'll only get better though, because it's a 3-match series. They don't come around that often, as you were saying. It's not even that these two face each other as often as all that. So we're just going to enjoy what's in store over the next couple of weeks, starting with that second test on Tuesday.
Yeah, no question. How do you see it going, test 2?
I'm going to stick to my guns and say Les Bleus get it done and drive it to a decider. I don't know if that's the more likely outcome. I suspect it
might be.
I hope is that a 2-point win for France. Why not? Saying just the reverse of it. Even it out. But the fear is that they'll be deflated from that they'll take. I don't want to see a France that are going victim mode because we should have won that game. You don't want to be in that mindset. But if they come out all guns blazing, I'm going to say France do get done this time.
I like that positivity. I think that the Wallabies have dusted down the cobwebs and they have a mighty pack, and they're going to have a mightier scrum if Tupou comes into the team. And that'll be too much for a French team at the end of a very long season, and I think they'll probably take it to 2-0. That's my prediction.
Yeah, fair enough.
Not a fan favourite, but that's what I reckon.
We want a deciding fixture. That's what we want.
Of course,
because we want to preview it. We want to get into it. But either way, we do want to watch it. So that one, as I said, goes on Tuesday, and before they wrap it up, then the weekend following. So it's very quick turnaround, but an exciting test series. Can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.